Thanks for joining us to learn about our work to support the facilitation of professional learning communities that serve struggling readers who are English learners in the Southwest. I'm Lisa Hsin, and I'm joined here by my colleague Brenda Arellano. We are both a part of the REL Southwest, which developed this guide to accompany an educator's practice guide, both of which are aligned with the EL-focused 2014 practice guide published by the What Works Clearinghouse. That practice guide, entitled Teaching Academic Content and Literacy to English Learners in Elementary and Middle School, presents 4 evidence-based recommendations for cultivating EL's content and literacy development, and concrete steps to implement those recommendations in the classroom. The recommendations highlight 4 leverage points for effective EL instruction around academic vocabulary, integration of language and content, structured writing instruction, and small group intervention. In our PLC Facilitators Guide, we provide activities and content for 8 PLC sessions, including over 30 handouts and nearly 24 videos. I'll pass it over to Brenda to share some of the benefits of this guide for educators.
Thank you, Lisa. While the Teaching Academic Content and Literacy to English Learners in Elementary and Middle School was developed to help support K-8 English learners acquire academic language and literacy skills, the Facilitators Guide is a how-to for implementing professional learning communities through small groups of educators reading, discussing, sharing, and applying the Educator Practice Guide's key ideas and strategies. The guide includes activities and content that the PLC from the same grade or multiple grade levels can engage in 8 different 75-minute sessions. The guide uses a 5-step process for collaborative learning that represents an inquiry action cycle. This 5-step process for the PLC sessions includes a debrief step where the team members share their instructional strategies and activities implemented in their classroom with their PLC and explain how students responded orally and in writing. This step also involves members sharing how they might change or adapt their lessons to increase student learning. Step 2 includes defining session goals where PLC members identify the focus and specific goals of the session. The third step involves exploring new practices and compares them to their current practice. This step challenges participants to access prior knowledge and experiences of the topic knowledge and of the topic session and moves into new learning by discussing specific features of each of the recommendations along with current evidence. The fourth step is about experimenting with newly learned strategies and collaborating with the PLC to practice applying activities and strategies drawn from the practice guide. Finally, in step 5, it's time for reflection and planning to think about how the new learning relates to the educator's previous knowledge and practice. As a group, the team should reflect on how the new activities and strategies will be implemented into the classroom prior to the next PLC. The guide includes activities for both small group and whole group within each session to guide participants. In terms of the resources and materials that accompany the guide, there are 4 introductory videos that cover the Educator Practice Guide's recommendations for the 4 evidence-based recommendations. In addition, the PLC guide is also linked to the 19 classroom videos that show actual classroom instruction across 3 grade levels, including grades 2 to 3, grade 4, and grade 6 to 8. Within each of the sessions in the PLC guide, the materials or videos that are needed for each of the sessions are outlined to help organize the PLC sessions. Some of the most popular video topics covered in the PLC sessions include pre-teaching vocabulary, activities to promote learning, completing a graphic organizer, or using videos to anchor instruction, just to mention a few of the popular topics. In addition, the video series accounted for the top 5 most watched videos on the Institute of Education Sciences YouTube channel. Testimonials from the PLC facilitators on use of the guide has been very positive. The videos have been highlighted in terms of the resources as being particularly useful, as well as the videos and the graphic organizers and the presentation of the research evidence for each of the recommendations. Together, both the PLC Facilitators Guide and the Companion Educator's Practice Guide are intended to foster a deeper understanding and implementation of evidence-based instructional practices aimed at supporting kindergarten through grade 8 English learner students, as well as to support educators in their continual learning and development around classroom practices. The evidence-based and collaborative approach of the PLC Facilitators Guide helps educators both meet the learning needs of English learners, and support teachers through a high-quality professional learning environment. A copy of the presentation and the link to the PLC Facilitators Guide will be made available with this presentation. Thank you for listening in on our presentation today.
Hello, I'm Larissa Campuzano. I'm a principal researcher on Mathematica, and I will present a summary of a practice guide developed by the WWC that focuses on how to support teaching academic content and literacy to English learners in elementary and middle school. The goal of the practice guide is to provide educators with evidence-based actionable recommendations to support students. The practice guide was developed by a panel of experts who combined their knowledge with findings from rigorous research to develop the recommendations. The Teaching Academic Content and Literacy to English Learners practice guide includes 4 recommendations that educators can implement to support English learners. The WWC reviewed the studies supporting each recommendation and assigned a level of evidence. The 4 recommendations in the practice guide were provided by the expert panel but have different levels of evidence. In this presentation, we will walk through how to carry out the first recommendation in detail, and we'll mention the other 3, but due to time constraints, we will not discuss the details on how to implement them. If you want additional details, the summary and full practice guides are available for download in the WWC website. Recommendation 1. Teach a set of academic vocabulary words intensively across several days using a variety of instructional activities. The practice guide includes detailed steps on how to implement the recommendation. The first step is to choose a piece of informational text that includes academic vocabulary as a platform for intensive vocabulary instruction. When choosing a text, look for a piece that is brief, interesting, and engaging for the students, that contains a variety of target academic words to focus on, that connects to a given unit of study and builds the students' knowledge of the topic. The piece should provide sufficient detail and examples for students to be able to comprehend the passage, and it should contain ideas that can be discussed from a variety of perspectives. The second step in implementing recommendation 1 is to choose a small set of vocabulary words for in-depth instruction. Aim for 5 to 8 words to focus on. The third step is to teach the academic vocabulary using multiple modalities, such as writing, speaking, and listening. The fourth step is to teach word learning strategies to help students independently figure out the meaning of words. For example, teach how to use context clues, teach word parts, and teach cognates, which are words in 2 languages that share a common origin and can help English learners as a bridge to English. The full practice guide that the summary is based on includes more details about how to implement the recommendation in your classroom. For example, the guide includes a sample lesson plan for several days to teach a small set of academic vocabulary words in depth. Both the summary and the practice guide provide details on how to implement 3 additional recommendations. The second recommendation is to integrate oral and written English language instruction into content area teaching. The third recommendation is to provide regular structured opportunities to develop written language skills. The fourth recommendation is to provide small group instructional intervention to students struggling in literacy and English language development. The practice guide and summary includes full details on how to implement these recommendations. Teachers will almost certainly encounter roadblocks to implement the recommendations in the practice guide. For this reason, the full practice guide also includes solutions to common roadblocks, such as this one from recommendation 3. English learners often make errors in so many different aspects of writing that it may be difficult to determine where to begin to provide feedback. It is not necessary to provide feedback for every aspect of a problematic writing sample. The purpose of a writing lesson is to build writing and language skills, not to create a perfect piece of writing. The panel recommends limiting the feedback to 1 or 2 aspects that are the focus of the week's objectives. Thank you for your interest in the WWC literacy resources. If you have any questions about the practice guides or any other product, you can contact the WWC help desk. The resources we discussed in this presentation and other products of interest are available online on the WWC website. Thank you.
There's a question. Do you have resources on, I think, LOTEs? I think, or do you mean long-term English learners?
I don't think the WWC has any resources on long term, but I will put a page where there are other practice guides.
Oh, languages other than English. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Thank you, Larissa, for posting that. And I do believe IES is going to be releasing some newer practice guides pretty soon, so you should keep your eye open for that. I'm not sure of the topics, but I have heard some new practice guides are coming out, so those should be exciting to see what's going to be released soon.